So we're super excited to introduce them, and we're going to go to the panel, and we're going to be standing back and forth. Steve, this question come up in the chat this morning. Why don't you just announce that, and we'll answer questions as needed. So to start with, ladies first, Heidi, right there, right? And so we teachers on employer, right? All right. So glad we're right. And then Jason Henderson, come on up. Conversation we got with the other mics. Looking for that, you sit right here. All right. And then you cannot do any of this properly without an entity. And then all the entity docs are going to help fund your wills and trusts. So Scott Arden, come on out. Right. Very, very necessary. Now, from a book, The Millionaires, you know Kyle Lowe's legacy, so I wanted to invite him to the panel. So Kyle, come on back up. What do you want? And then Marlon, you are very well versed in wills, trust, insurance. I know that's how this whole thing works. Now we have to talk to this thousand people. No pressure. You can do it anything you want.
They won't see it.
You can talk about it.
Okay, so
Do we want to go?
You can't do it at the same time.
You want somebody else to hold that?
Yes.
be in two places.
I need one more.
One more.
Cool.
Okay, so you just, as you get up and scan it, just load it back.
Okay.
And then Jordan, you have to read the chat. This is MSU in its finest, folks. You need this down anyway, we're just including your people out here. And so Thomas will put up the PowerPoint and you can begin. We'll pass it to Thomas.
Sit down. All right, so just a little bit back about me. I'm actually a scientist by training. I have a PhD in chemistry. After I got
You have a PhD in chemistry?
Yes, ma'am. Wow. After I got done,
Dr. Jason.
some people call me doctor. When I got done, I postdoc accountant. A lot of people don't know what accountant is about that. But people that don't get into accounting go to Harvard. 3 years after I left, the professor was in chemistry. So I've spent a lot of time in science and solving problems. In fact, when I left my graduate work about 10 years later, the university built a 26 million facility based on what I did. It was nanotechnology. We didn't know about nanotechnology. So I go into problems and try and solve those. And one of the things that the world came to me, I kind of come to work with insurance point of view, because we really need wills and trusts. We need this whole thing. So I was trying to solve that the best I could. And I've done a few things. And so go to the next slide. I don't have a clicker. Who can click? So everybody's working on the legacy.
Oh, I don't know.
Does someone have a clicker that could change? Jordan. All right, so everybody has the legacy, whether that's an amount of wealth or whatever.
It's one sec, time out. Technical changes for the group out there. Thomas is, thank God.
So you all are just going to,
My phone close to you.
as you talk, you're just going to go live to your phone. Okay. So you have the mic in one hand and the phone in the other.
There, Heidi can click. There you go. There you go, like that.
So
And you click.
we all have a legacy, and essentially that legacy is going to rest on three legacies. Okay, and to a large degree, those three legs are, go ahead and click through them. There's wills, insurance, and trust. And so all of us up here are going to be talking a little bit about those different aspects. And it's a big enough and important enough subject that not just one person is going to be brought to bear on this. Okay. I'm not going to pretend to try and tell you that I know enough about wills and trusts that I'm going to go up against head to head with Heidi. She's small, but she's 100 pounds of pure meanness. Okay. And that was her husband in the background that said, yeah. Let's go to the next one. When I first thought about this, one of the first things that came to mind is my son Joshua. That's him climbing. And he has a couple of good friends. And so this next one is a video, and you got to watch it really close. As it happens, like it one more time, I think. His friend took a fall. Okay. While I was climbing, and if you can see this helicopter's coming in here, and he's right here. Okay, go to the next one. That's one thing. Once we got him to the ground, he had broken 5 vertebrae and his L1. He has flown quite a ways, and guess what? He's 20 years old, no durable power of attorney. Can mom and dad do anything? Shake your head no. Okay. A small thing, but it's important enough in that young man's life at that point in time that something needed to happen. Okay. So go on to the next one. All right. So do you need an estate or legacy plan? So everybody stand up. I'm going to help you just determine whether you need one. Go to the next one. Okay. So you can sit down if you have the following. Go ahead. All right, you have no children. Okay, you have no children or beneficiaries. No, wait a second. All of these. Okay, you have a will, you have a trust, you have durable power of attorney, and those documents have been reviewed and updated in the last 12 months. If you have all of those, you may sit down. Okay, go to the next one. Okay. You can sit down if you have all of the following. You have children, you do have a will, you have a trust, you have durable power of attorney for you and your children over 18, and they've been reviewed and updated in the last 12 months. You can sit down. If you don't have that, okay, go to this next one. Okay, so wait a second. If you've thought about it or you have not updated it, you're welcome to sit halfway and stay there, please. I'm not kidding. Sit there. Do exactly that. Stay there. Okay. We're going to go on with the whole presentation while they're like that. Keep going. So that's whether you need one. Now let's talk about why you need one. All right. No, what are you doing here? You have to be halfway. Come on. Okay. But this should be driving it home to you how important this is. Okay. The more uncomfortable you get, the more, and you're welcome to say, I will talk to Heidi within 10 minutes of this presentation. Then you can sit down. Okay, but smart money says that very few people have it. Go to the next one. There's just a few quotes from there. If you have assets or whatever, you need a plan. Go to the next one. LexisNexis said 56% of Americans do not have any estate planning documents in place. I was pretty close to this room. Go to the next one. Okay, the American Association of Really Young People says that only 23% of Americans, adults over 50, have a trust. So the whole purpose here is just trying to do, hey, you've got to have something doing. And so I'm going to stop right here, and I just want to ask a couple of these people beside me. Heidi, for example, why do you have why don't you have an estate plan? Why do you think some people don't have one?
I think the biggest reason people don't have an estate plan is procrastination. Just like we saw, almost everybody that was standing sat halfway because you've thought about it. You just haven't taken care of it yet.
Okay.
I think my reason is that it's an uncomfortable conversation, and people don't want to really have that conversation, especially with their children, right? You know, and the children don't even want to think about the thought of their parents leaving. So that's really one of the bigger reasons why.
Very good.
So I'm one of those criminals. I have most of those things, but I don't have one of them. I won't reveal which one. But part of that is an indecisiveness, I think, that has to do with what exactly do I want my long-term plan to be? Because a lot of these are very permanent type of things that you're creating. And so I think people like myself are not certain which direction that we want to go. And so what I would suppose is that getting that information from the experts leads you to that decision.
Is there a solution to that?
Well, those are very common. In fact, especially with the parental set especially has great difficulty with that guardian question. Because no one is ever going to take care of your kids the way you take care of your kids. But instead of providing someone on paper that could do a good job of taking care of your kids, coming up with a plan for maybe managing the money around that differently, you'll just wait. And that's the worst thing you can do, because that can make your kids awarded the state. But I find that is usually, among the parental set, that's usually the holdup. That's the stopping point. You haven't had that conversation with somebody about taking care of your kids.
Okay, so there's a good example of how Heidi can help you, right? We're solving problems there. That's a sticking point. So why don't you, well, not you, but why don't people have a stake? Because I know you're in pretty good shape.
Well, I think a lot of it is kind of what everyone's mentioned, but also because of not knowing where to go. For me, I actually came from a family that an estate plan went from 1956 to 1984. And I was in that and actually having to do the generation to settle that. Sorry. So from 56 to 84, so 1984, we actually settled that estate. And so when I was in my 20s, I guess my age, I was going to all kinds of estate plans. But the other thing is, that's also another issue, because one of the trusts we were looking at, they ended up in jail. And so you kind of go through all that stuff and you're like, well, which one's the right one and all that kind of stuff. That's what I like about this community, is we're here to help and guide and direct and get you to that next step, because that's the value of it.
So click to the next one. So there are a few reasons, and I think I tried to come up with those. One of them is the process can be very intimidating. Now, I'm not just trying to be funny here. I'm not sure many of us want to go into an attorney's office and sit across the table from them and talk to them. Heidi might be an exception for that, but even at that, there's a number of us in the room don't want to talk to her in that way. Next one, what about the costs? And we're going to talk a little bit about the costs. Heidi's going to help us with that because of the big table and everything we're doing. It's minimal if you compare it to the alternative. Go to the next one, okay? Right here's the painful topic. Way to go, Scott, you're spot on. Next one. And some people believe it's really complicated, and it can be very complicated. But again, people like Scott and Heidi and even Kyle and Marlon and myself, we can help that not be complicated. Talk you through. Just recently in talking to Heidi, she used, I don't know, a term that she uses called the floozy clause. Now, I'm not sure I had heard that before, but it really described it very, she wasn't describing herself or my wife. She was just talking about something else, okay? So,
My husband's teacher one.
oh, let's see. All right, so let's go to the next one. So it's really cool that the Grim Reaper, unlike the IRS, he only comes and visits you once. Okay, I just want to be clear here. So you want that when he comes and visit that single time, it'll be much better. Okay, you'll learn this. Okay, so I was going to talk to Justin. Where did he go? He promised to be here. Okay, run outside and see if you can find Justin. How many remember Ridgely's presentation? Okay, who thinks they remember the most? You said yep first. Yeah. Okay, Bruce. Tell us 3 of the personalities.
Problem solver, innovator,
Hey!
rebel. Yeah, this is
You got help. Okay. That was pretty, okay. That was pretty good, and I didn't think people could come up with 3, so you're smarter than what I thought people would be. So I got to find someone else who's not as smart. Charlie, right? I don't know your name, no. Let's go to the next step, is what I was really talking about. What do you remember about his estate problems? Because everybody remembers, for example, what was the company that his estate is tied up with?
I don't remember.
Okay, if you can say it.
Coca-Cola.
Okay, and it's still tied up, right? His grandma?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so there's a real big issue with his family's estate. It sounds like there's still things going on. That's one of the problems with this whole thing. Okay, Justin still hasn't made it in. Let's go on to the next one. We'll have to go on to the next, okay? So one of my favorite bands says in Free Will, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. So guess what? Everybody that was standing halfway, no worries. You already have a will, right? And what is that, Heidi?
So if you don't have an estate plan, you still have a plan. It's called a state's plan.
Go ahead. By not deciding to act, you choose the. It's really up to you. You already have one. You don't need one. Just take the government's choice. Why don't we want the government's choice?
So the government's choice, if we were to create a plan, we'd probably come up with the same thing that the state's plan is. It's very logical. The problem is families don't necessarily operate in the logical. You all have a brother that if they got everything, you wouldn't want them to have it. Okay, that could be part of the state's plan, or a sister, or that one kid that's got all kinds of issues, right? So the state's plan is not your plan.
Okay, thanks. Let's go on this one. Push the correct button, please. Okay, so no decision on your part is basically going to probate, and that's all we're going to say here. You can click through this. The court gets to decide everything, and there's all kinds of things. But coming back to cost, then go to the next one. There's all kinds of fees, and there's just a big list of fees that we have on the PowerPoint for those online. Okay, just lots of fees. There's legal notice fees. There's filing fees. There's bond fees. I can read faster than you can push the button. Personal representative fees, attorney's fees, appraisal fees. Okay, but the total cost of probate generally is, and this is a nationwide average, it's anywhere between 3 and 6%, 3 and 8% of your estate. Okay, I'm assuming most people in here have something greater than 100,000, but let's just use that number. Depending on where you live and all the different fees, you could end up, well, I'm using 300,000 in my presentation, anywhere from 3,000 to 24,000 is the cost, just monetary cost. It's not emotional and hassle and everything else cost. It's just money out of your pocket between $3,000 and $24,000. It's an expensive decision to not have moved on. Keep going. This is examples. So we just have examples in different states, California. In some states, it's kind of ill-defined because they say in the state law that the representatives are entitled to reasonable compensation. Keep going, keep going. Okay, and that's this bottom one is cost of time and hassle. Keep going. Okay, so the message is, and we have a kind of a thing on the board that says, the only way you can beat the courts is to die with nothing. And that's Will Rogers, we have it up there. That was something that he said. So if everybody just wants to die penniless, that's the best way to not have a will and trust. So when you go through probate, it's not a big deal. Justin finally showed up. I guess they found him in the, was that the ladies' room they said, the powder room? Come on up. Yes, please. Justin is going to tell us, he was on the tour yesterday or the day before when he actually told us something that happened in his life with someone significant that didn't have a will and trust. So you can go ahead and sit down there next to Heidi. I'll sit by Heidi. And you tell us just real briefly your experience and how it would have changed you had that person had will and trust and insurance going on for them.
Okay, so yeah, everybody obviously heard my story yesterday, or I don't know what day, a week ago, whenever it was. You heard my story, you heard how I got here. Obviously, as you've just heard, with wills, with trust, it protects us from doing that, protects us from getting in those situations, protects our loved ones, whoever it may be. And if it wasn't, you know, unfortunately, if it wasn't for my partner not having everything set up properly and correctly, I wouldn't be here. But would his life and his estate and his heirs be better off, and would it have made my life a lot easier? Absolutely. You know, I can't imagine what wouldn't have happened, or what would have happened to me if I didn't know Thomas. Okay, if Thomas wouldn't have made that connection, I wouldn't have found you guys. I probably wouldn't have my business. I probably would have went back to work for 3M or went back to work for AT&T, and I would not be where I'm at. And I don't want to act like, you know, I'm conceited or anything, and I'm where I need to be, and I'm as good as I can ever get, because I'm not. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to grow and learn more and do different, better things. But at the end of the day, I promise I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at today. And, you know, I wouldn't like where I'm at either. So with that will and trust, you ensure the successful passing of your estate, of your, you know, your loved ones being taken care of. And so absolutely everything I didn't even hear it, but I promise you everything he said was good about this industry and these setups and all that good stuff.
Okay, thanks. You missed right here with the foundation. Go on to the next thing. Okay, so if you choose to decide, you get to choose those over. I mean, this is just driving it home again. You get to do your plan or the government's plan is basically all we're saying. Okay. So just have Thomas hit it. Okay, you decide, and what happens? You decide instead of courts. If you'll just click through that real quick, we don't need to take a ton of time. But all these different things, you know, you can decide about your kids, your money, and different things. And it's not just about the money. Okay, there's other issues. Okay, in Kyle's book, he takes this great pride in building a legacy and something and teaching your kids. He's not giving your kids, or doesn't want to give his kids $1 million. He wants to teach them to build $1 million. And part of that is his legacy. Okay, there's more than just financial capital. There's intellectual capital. There's cultural capital that you need to be passing on. And that's part of what this team teaches you about. Go to the next one, please. Okay, so just a few benefits. That was a little bit too far, but one of the ones up here is privacy. You might not know, or you probably do know, once you go through probate, everything's published. And one of the fastest growing identity theft areas is people that have died through probate. It's public record. And they can go out there and get your identity and possibly lodge a debt against you that has to be satisfied before your heirs get anything. Okay, Heidi's shaking her head. Do you have a story about that, or you just know about it?
I just know about that. I actually am lucky enough to have not had that example yet.
Okay, do you by chance? Okay, go ahead then, please. So there's a couple of important documents that are going to be part of that. The one thing that people forget is the durable power of attorneys, but you have the ability here in this panel to answer all of those questions of what needs to happen, how to really pass that legacy on to, and make it be what you want it to be. Okay, Heidi's going to give you advice on things within your trust, how to decide how the money portions can be changed. Kyle can help you on how to teach kids so they appreciate what's been built and built upon it. I don't know if anybody's read Atlas Shrugged. Okay. Francisco d'Anconia. What was the d'Anconia supposed to do? Do you remember? Did you say yes? You don't remember. In the d'Anconia family, the requirement was you're supposed to increase the wealth by 10%. Okay, and Francisco thought he could do it by 100%. I don't know if you remember that part of the book. Anyway, go on to the next one. Okay, so none of them in the room, I don't know if anybody online is still standing halfway, but nobody in the room made it. So you need to decide if you're tired of sitting, because that's where you are with your wills and trusts, period. If you don't have what we said to start off with, then this is where you are, and it's a very precarious situation and things are not good. You don't get your entities in place, because sometimes the wills and trusts really can be okay, but if you have entities inside that, and maybe you could say a few words about that, Scott, I'm gonna stop talking, but there's importance there, right? I mean, it's not just.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot of importance having the entities inside the trust structure, even if you're going into business together. I mean, just in the case of like Justin, right? If one partner passes away and they don't have anything tied up in their estate plan or their trust, the business is going to go through probate, and that's going to affect every other partner within the business as well. So it's not just what you're building, but you've also got to look at who you're getting involved with at the same time.
Do your partners stuff become public?
Well, if it's in a trust, everything in the trust is private. So that's
But if it wasn't,
If it
and
wasn't.
your partner died,
Oh, yeah, that's public record.
okay, so public there as well. So you have to take care of that. It's not, so I hope you're understanding how important that entity is that Scott's talking about, okay? And Scott's a master of that. He knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. But he'll be the first one to admit, right after Heidi, that he doesn't know enough about the wills, the legal part of it, right? Heidi will probably see that first. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like, so again, she's the trust attorney.
Okay.
She handles a lot of that. I mean, when it comes to the actual funding of the trust, putting the entities and the strategy behind it. I mean, there's strategy behind it. And so that's where I come in. That's my strong suit of how to tie all of your affairs together basically into this estate plan.
Okay, so hitch your wagon to him in
And,
certain cases. Go ahead, Heidi.
and there's also a place to hitch your wagon to Jason that's really important. I just want to bring up, most of my clients, most of their wealth is wrapped up in their house and in their IRAs, if they're traditionally coming through the non-Loral system. And as of December last year, the feds played a nice game on us. During the impeachment hearing, they hid a very important piece of legislation. It just snuck through, didn't make the news at all. It's called the Secure Act. And under the Secure Act, if you have an IRA, if you are leaving that to your children, it has to be fully given to them and taxed within 10 years. So think about it, the 70-year-old that's dying, their 40 or 50-year-old is in their highest earning years. And those are the times they're going to have to pay the taxes on that during their highest tax years. This was not a gift, okay, to us. This ruined my world of trust in a lot of ways because I can't write these long, wonderful stretch IRAs that allow people to take that over a long time under their trust. So if a lot of your wealth you are not going to use for yourself and you plan to pass it along to your kids and it's sitting in an IRA, you need to talk to this man right here. You need to move it over into an insurance vehicle where it can be passed tax-free to your kids and not be a burden to them. So there's you'll see if the entities play into this, the insurance plays into this, the legacy piece, the information to your kids plays into this, the investments, and that there's so many pieces that all fit together that need to be part of the conversation. And the good news is while you're at the table, you can have that conversation around the table. So.
You were shaking your head, so I don't know if you have something.
No, I was aware of that legislation. And it was, like you said, a devastating piece of legislation. And to me, it just drives home the point, that we try to make in our book, that you need to have professionals who are keeping track of these sorts of things. These aren't the sorts of things that everybody knows, right? And these can drastically affect the legacy of your family. And then the other thing that it leads me to think about is the fact that having your kids grow up in a family atmosphere where you talk about money leads them to have the knowledge to even ask those sorts of questions. So when they hear that piece of legislation on the news, they won't necessarily know to go to a professional unless they know at least a little bit, right? So by talking to your kids and your family about money on a daily basis, on a weekly, on a monthly, on a yearly basis, you provide with them that base level of education about money so that when they hear that on the news, they can go to their professionals and say, no, wait a minute, I just heard something about them changing the taxation of your IRAs as they get passed on to your heirs. What does that mean, Heidi? And can you give me some more information on that? But again, if you don't teach them and make this part of their everyday learning, then they don't even know to ask that question. So the professionals are there to answer that question, but you as the parent, it's your job to teach them about money so that they understand to even ask it.
Okay, great, thanks. So let's be clear, Heidi is licensed in the state of Arizona. If you don't live in the state of Arizona, you're SOL and you can't talk to Indians. That's not the Loral way, right? Heidi has the ability to get to all states, and I guess maybe eventually international, but every single state. So that's not an issue. Okay, we can work wherever you are and we can make sure that things will happen the way you want it to happen.
You have to do it.
You can come up and say that, that's fine. Because you're still standing halfway. Until you actually do it, you're still standing halfway. There comes a point in your wealth where you're going to start to want to become anonymous. And you don't want people to necessarily know who you are or how much you have. In my dealings, I came across an individual, and I don't know, I never verified this, but he was the current generation's caretaker of the Genghis Khan fortune. That's what was the claim. Now, the only thing I did verify, and I'm not kidding, verified that he had caretaking of $600 million in rubies. That wasn't the total fortune, but as a family from generation to generation, using experts like what we're talking about here, that's where you should be thinking, intergenerationally and long term. But you could be building things to where it's just, you know, and it's not just about money again, because we need the books and everything together. Laurel, is there more you want to add to that? Because I think we're about to open ideas.
All right, I just have one more quick thing. I know a lot of you probably have a will. Raise your hand just for me if you've got a will but not a trust. Okay, a will accomplishes some great things. A will make sure that the way that you've designed money to pass to your kids passes. It'll give you guardianship. But guess what the will really is? You can think of the will as a letter to the probate court. Your will does not avoid probate. If you've been led to believe that, it is a lie. A will tells the court how you want to handle probate. A trust, if it's funded, avoids probate altogether. So a trust is a different vehicle. A trust also allows stupidity insurance for your kids. That's what I call it. Basically, you can protect your kids from divorce and creditors and lawsuits, okay? And a trust allows control from beyond the grave, where you can make your kids jump through the hoops that you want to meet the values you want to, because it's your money, not theirs. And a will, you leave things all at once. A trust, you can leave it in an organized method over time. So can you see the difference between a will and a trust? That's why if you think a will is enough, you probably are wrong. Okay. All right.
Okay. Any of the other experts have some last party words? We're going to turn it back over to Laurel. What just happened there?
There's different kind of trust.
Oh yes, there's please understand, this is 101. Okay, but we're also trying to show you that there is a panel of people who are here to help you, to watch out for you, to make sure happens what you really want to have happen, not just a letter to, like she says, a letter to the judge, and then the judge does what they want anyway, or gets challenged.
Awesome. Give him a hand. Well done. Those of you that are out of Millionaires in Training Group, we have recorded this live in the room. We'll put it up so you can get a clearer view, but I think we did a great job MSUing. Thank you, Thomas and the team. And as your arms sore, it's a good workout. Just like holding it around for a half hour like that. It's good. It's good isometric exercise for you. All right, any questions? Yes.
So when you had that, do you have all this? Didn't it say, do you have durable power? Didn't it say, do you have durable power?
Durable powers of attorney.
For your adult children? Did it say that?
Yeah.
Even if they're married?
Yes.
No. Okay. If they're, yeah.
So what we're talking about in that is your 18 to 26-year-old. Usually, it's usually the kids that they're still reliant on you, they're still on your insurance. These kids, if they go off and they're in a car accident, they're in a coma, and they can't sign their own paperwork, you have to go to court before you can talk to the doctor and make their medical decisions, before you can help with their medical bills, before you can do any of that. So, I mean, even just to talk to the doctor and get their status legally is a HIPAA violation if you don't have those documents.
That's the story.
I will just say, our daughter broke her back at 20 years old. Thank you, God, that she wasn't 21. I didn't even know this till today.
Yeah, but it's really 18.
It's 18.
It's 18.
They dated after 18th birthday. Now, I can tell you, HIPAA was 1996. If she was 18 before, okay,
Yeah, they shouldn't have given you any data.
they shouldn't. They're breaking HIPAA
18.
law.
Yeah, it's critical.
If your daughter came out and said to the hospital, I didn't want you to tell my mom, they would have a big lawsuit on it.
Yeah. Well, and like my son in playing football. Got it. You don't have one on Bryce. Because once they're 18, I think a lot of people just think, well, I'm still their parent. It's like, yeah, you are, but you don't have any legal rights. Great question. Yep. 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 Yeah. So what we're talking about, those of you in here, is any of your kids 18 to 26, really any of your kids, any adults, they have to have it, and somebody has to have the legal right to do their health care and their financial. All right, so we're gonna let you go out here on the Millionaires Training Group. Thank you, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Who's up next Tuesday? I don't remember who is. I know in 2 weeks it's Ron LeGrand. You want to watch in 2 weeks? We'll have him back. Oh, I know, it's going to be Chris Klein. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and gold. That's next week, and then the week after is Ron LeGrand, and the next week we vote. See you next Tuesday, 12 noon.